Commander Hyunwoo Park stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the enemy fleet approach. The Vorthak ships looked like giant metal spiders against the stars. Their dark hulls gleamed with energy shields, and their weapons glowed with deadly power. Hyunwoo had fought them for 3 years now, and he knew they thought humans were weak. The communication screen lit up with the face of Admiral So-Min Lee. Her expression was calm, but Hyunwoo could see the tension in her eyes. "Commander Park, prepare for retreat pattern 7, she said. "We need to fall back to the next system." Hyunwoo nodded. "Yes, Admiral. Should we use the plasma cannons?" "Standard weapons only," Admiral Lee replied. "Nothing more." Hyunwoo felt frustrated, but he followed orders. For 30 years, humans had been fighting the Vorthak Empire with basic weapons. Their ships used simple fusion drives, basic energy, shields, and kinetic cannons that fired metal slugs. The Vorthak had better technology, or so it seemed. They controlled 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, and thought humans were just another weak species to crush. On the enemy flagship, Warlord Grixtal watched the human ships retreat. His forearms moved over his control panels as he gave orders. "Pursue them," he commanded his fleet. "These humans cannot run forever. Their weapons are weak. Their ships are slow. This war will end soon." Grixtal had been fighting humans for 5 years. In every battle, they used the same old weapons. Sometimes they won through clever tactics, but they never used anything that surprised him. He believed humans had shown him everything they could do. The battle began like all the others. Human ships fired their metal slugs while Vorthak vessels responded with plasma beams. Explosions lit up space as shields absorbed damage. The humans fought well, but they were outnumbered. Slowly, they began to retreat toward the edge of the system. On Earth, Dr. Ji-Hai Kim sat in a secret laboratory deep underground. She watched the battle through encrypted signals. Around her, hundreds of scientists worked on projects that would shock the galaxy. Weapons that could tear apart space itself. Shields that could stop anything. Ships that moved faster than light in ways the galaxy had never seen. "Dr. Kim," her assistant said, "Admiral Lee is requesting permission for Protocol 7. Dr. Kim looked at the screens showing human casualties. Good people were dying while she kept her weapons locked away. "Not yet," she said quietly. "The time is not right." The assistant looked confused. "But our people are suffering. We could end this war in days." "And start a bigger one," Dr. Kim replied. "The galaxy is not ready to know what humans can really do." Back in space, Commander Park's ship took heavy damage. One of his plasma cannons exploded, killing 12 crew members. He watched their bodies float away into the darkness and felt anger burn in his chest. His ship had weapons that could destroy that entire Vorthak fleet, but Earth Command kept them locked away. "Sir," his weapons officer said, "should I activate the restricted systems?" "No," Park replied through gritted teeth. "Orders are orders." The human fleet reached the jump point and escaped to the next system. Warlord Grixtal smiled with satisfaction. The humans were getting weaker. Soon he would reach their home worlds and claim victory for the Vorthak Empire. Admiral So-Min Lee called a meeting of her top commanders after the battle. 12 officers gathered in her flagship's conference room. All of them looked tired and frustrated. "I know what you're thinking," Admiral Lee said. "Why do we keep fighting with one hand tied behind our backs? Why do we let our people die when we have better weapons?" Commander Park spoke first. "Admiral, with respect, how long can we keep this up? The Vorthak think we're weak. Our own crews are starting to doubt us." "The crews know nothing about our real capabilities," Admiral Lee replied. "Only the officers in this room know the truth, and it must stay that way." Another commander raised her hand. "But why? We could wipe out their entire empire in a month." Admiral Lee activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy with red markers scattered throughout. "Because of these," she said, "long-range sensors have detected something coming from outside our galaxy, something that makes the Vorthak look like children playing with toys." The room fell silent. The officers stared at the red markers moving slowly toward their galaxy. "Earth Command believes we have maybe 50 years before they arrive," Admiral Lee continued. When they get here, we'll need every species in this galaxy to fight together. If we show our true power now, some aliens will surrender to us, others will unite against us. Either way, the galaxy will be divided when the real threat arrives. Dr. Kim received another message from the fleet. More ships were damaged. More good people were dead. She walked to a sealed vault and placed her hand on the scanner. Inside were the activation codes for humanity's real weapons. Devices that could crack planets in half. Ships that moved through dimensions the Vorthak couldn't even detect. Soldiers with armor that made them nearly invincible. Her assistant found her there an hour later. Dr. Earth Command is asking again about Protocol 7. Dr. Kim closed the vault. Tell them not yet. We're still gathering intelligence on alien capabilities. When the time comes to reveal our true strength, we need to know exactly how each species will react. On the Vorthak homeworld, intelligence reports painted a clear picture. Human technology was advancing slowly. Their weapons were getting slightly better, but nothing that couldn't be handled. Some analysts suggested the humans might have hidden capabilities, but Warlord Grixtal dismissed such ideas. They have shown us everything, he told the Vorthak High Council. 30 years of war and they always use the same basic weapons. If humans had better technology, they would use it. They are not clever enough to hide their true power. Commander, see you. Park returned to his quarters after the latest battle. His ship had lost another crew member, a young engineer named Tae-ho. The man had been working on the restricted weapon systems when a power surge killed him. Park knew those weapons could have prevented every death in his fleet. He opened his personal log and began to record. Day 1847 of the war. Lost another good person today. The crew asks me why we don't use our better weapons. I tell them we don't have any. I hate lying to them, but orders are orders. Sometimes I wonder if command knows what they're doing. Dr. Kim stood in her laboratory, looking at readouts from the deep space sensors. The signals were getting stronger. Whatever was coming from outside the galaxy was moving faster than expected. She walked to her communication console and sent a coded message to Admiral Lee. Ma'am, her assistant said. What did you tell the Admiral? I told her we might need to accelerate our timeline, Dr. Kim replied. The enemy is coming sooner than we thought. The war continued, with humans appearing to struggle against Vorthak forces. But in secret facilities across human space, the greatest weapons in galactic history waited for their moment. The galaxy thought it knew what humans could do. Soon, they would learn how wrong they were. The battle for Kepler Station began like every other fight in the 30-year war. Warlord Grixtal led his massive fleet toward the human outpost, expecting another easy victory. His ships outnumbered the human defenders 3-1. Intelligence. Reports showed the humans had only their usual weapons, basic plasma cannons, simple missiles, and metal slug throwers. Captain Dong-Hyun Choi commanded the human ship Soul's Fury. His vessel looked ordinary from the outside, gray metal hull, standard fusion drives, normal weapon ports. But hidden deep in its core were systems that could reshape reality itself. Today, for the first time in 30 years, he had permission to use them. Captain, said Lieutenant Ye-Jin Han from the weapons station, I'm receiving the activation codes now. All restricted systems are coming online. Captain Choi felt his heart race. He had trained for this moment but never thought it would come. Are you certain about the authorization? Lieutenant Han checked her screen again. Yes, sir. Direct from Earth Command. Protocol 7 is now active. All limiters are removed. Across human space, similar messages reached every ship. Captains who had fought with basic weapons for decades suddenly had access to humanity's true arsenal. The technology they had dreamed of using was finally unlocked. On the Vorthak flagship, Science Coordinator Tae-Young Lim monitored the approaching battle. He was one of the few Vorthak who studied human tactics carefully. Something felt different about this engagement, but he couldn't identify what. Warlord, he said, the human ships are positioning themselves strangely. They're not following their usual defensive patterns. Grixtal barely glanced at the tactical display. They are desperate. We have them cornered at their own station. Let them try new tactics. It will not save them. The first phase of battle began normally. Vorthak ships fired their plasma weapons while humans responded with kinetic rounds. Energy shields flared as projectiles struck their targets. For 10 minutes, everything looked like a standard engagement. Then Lieutenant Han pressed a button she had never touched before. The Soul's Fury fired something that wasn't a weapon by any normal definition. It was a gravitational pulse that grabbed space itself and twisted it into knots. The effect hit a Vorthak cruiser and simply erased it from existence. Not destroyed, not blown apart. Erased. One moment the ship was there, the next moment there was empty space where it had been. "What was that?" Grixtal roared at his science team. Tae-Young Lim stared at his instruments in disbelief. I don't know, Warlord. The readings make no sense. It appears the humans have weaponized gravity itself. More human ships began firing their restricted weapons. Plasma beams that burned hotter than the core of stars cut through Vorthak shields like they were made of paper. Energy bolts that ignored the laws of physics appeared inside enemy ships without crossing the space between. Missiles that moved. Through dimensions, the Vorthak couldn't even detect struck targets from impossible angles. Captain Choi watched in amazement as his weapons officer destroyed ship after ship with casual efficiency. "Lieutenant Han, how long have these systems been installed on our ship?" "According to the technical manuals, sir, they've been here since construction. We've been carrying them for 8 years without knowing." The Vorthak fleet began to panic. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before were being destroyed by weapons that defied understanding. Grixtal ordered his fastest ships to retreat and carry word back to the Empire. "Warlord," Tae-Young Lim said, his voice shaking, "we're losing 60% of our fleet. These new human weapons are unlike anything we've encountered." "New weapons?" Grixtal snarled. "How can they develop new technology overnight?" Admiral So-Min Lee watched the battle from her command ship. After 30 years of pretending to be weak, it felt strange to show even a fraction of humanity's true power. She opened a secure channel to her inner circle of officers. "Gentlemen, ladies," she said, "I know this is shocking, but these aren't new weapons. We've had this technology for 40 years. Every human ship has carried these systems since the war began." Commander Park, monitoring from his own vessel, couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Admiral, are you saying we've been deliberately losing battles, letting our people die?" "Not losing," Admiral Lee corrected. "Managing. We've been carefully controlling how much the galaxy knows about our capabilities. Today, we're showing them about 15% of what we can really do." The destruction of the Vorthak fleet continued. Ships that had terrorized human space for decades were reduced to debris in minutes. But the human commanders were careful not to destroy everything. They let enough Vorthak vessels escape to carry word back to their empire. Dr. Ji-Hai Kim watched the battle from her underground laboratory. Around her, technicians monitored the performance of humanity's weapons. The gravitational cannons worked perfectly. The dimensional missiles hit their targets without fail. The plasma systems operated within safe parameters. "Doctor," her assistant said, "the weapons are performing even better than our simulations predicted." "Of course they are," Dr. Kim replied. "We've had 30 years to perfect them while pretending to struggle with basic technology. Every battle has been a testing ground for our real systems." On the Vorthak homeworld, emergency sessions of the High Council began as soon as the first survivor ships returned. The report seemed impossible. Humans had suddenly developed weapons that made Vorthak technology look primitive. They must have made contact with another species, one counselor suggested. Someone gave them advanced technology. Tae-Young Lim, now back at the capital, shook his head. "No, honored counselor. I've studied the wreckage. This technology is uniquely human, but it's not new. The construction methods, the materials used, everything suggests these weapons are decades old." The council chamber fell silent. If humans had possessed such weapons for years, why hadn't they used them before? Captain Choi gathered his crew after the battle. The young faces around him showed confusion and excitement in equal measure. They had just witnessed their ship perform miracles, and they wanted answers. "Sir, asked his navigation officer. "How long have we had these weapons?" "Since before most of you were born," Captain Choi replied honestly. "Earth Command kept them locked away for reasons I'm only beginning to understand." "But why?" Lieutenant Han asked. "We could have ended this war years ago." Captain Choi looked at the tactical display showing Vorthak retreat routes. "Because ending one war too quickly might start a much bigger one. The galaxy isn't ready to know what humanity can really do." In the depths of space, long-range sensors picked up signals from outside the galaxy. The readings were faint, but growing stronger. Something vast and alien was moving between the stars, heading toward their home. Dr. Kim knew these signals were the real reason for humanity's deception. She opened a communication channel to Admiral Lee. "Admiral, the deep space arrays are showing increased activity. Our timeline may be shorter than we thought." Admiral Lee nodded grimly. "Then we'll need to accelerate our reveal. The galaxy must be ready for what's coming." The battle at Kepler Station marked the end of an era. For 30 years, aliens had seen humans as a struggling species with outdated technology. Now they knew better. But they still had no idea how much humanity had been holding back. In secret bases across human territory, weapons that made today's display look like fireworks waited in storage. Ships that could cross the galaxy in hours sat in hidden docks. Soldiers with enhancement technology that bordered on magic, trained for a war that hadn't started yet. The galaxy was about to learn that everything they thought they knew about humanity was wrong. And soon, they would discover why humans had been preparing for something much worse than the Vorthak Empire. News of the battle at Kepler Station spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had dismissed humans as primitive suddenly found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew. The Zephyrian Trade Coalition called emergency meetings. The Crystal Hive stopped all military movements. Even the proud Stellar Dominion began reviewing their intelligence files on human capabilities. Ambassador Haewon Yu sat in her office on the neutral station Harmony Point. For 20 years she had attended diplomatic meetings where other species treated humans like junior partners in galactic affairs. They spoke slowly to her, explained simple concepts, and made decisions without consulting Earth's representatives. Today her appointment calendar was full of urgent requests from those same ambassadors. "Ambassador Yu," said Kethrak, the Nexus, Coalition's chief observer. "We need to discuss recent developments in human military technology." Ambassador Yu smiled politely. "Which developments are you referring to, honored Kethrak?" "The weapons your fleet used at Kepler Station. Our scientists say they violate several known laws of physics." "How did your people develop such technology?" "We've always been creative problem solvers," Ambassador Yu replied carefully. "Perhaps other species simply underestimated human ingenuity." On Earth, engineer Sung Ho Kang stood in a vast underground facility that stretched for kilometers beneath the North American continent. Around him, production lines churned out weapons that looked like they belonged in science fiction movies. Gravity manipulators that could crush stars. Energy projectors that fired concentrated pieces of the Big Bang. Defense systems that could make entire planets invisible. "Sir," his assistant said, "the diplomatic corps is requesting a full briefing on our manufacturing capabilities. They want to know what we can actually produce." Engineer Kang looked at the endless rows of impossible weapons. "Tell them we make things that work. They don't need to know the details yet." The assistant looked confused. "But sir, shouldn't our allies know what we're capable of?" "These aren't allies," Kang replied quietly. "These are species that were perfectly happy to let us struggle against the Vorthak for 30 years. Real allies would have offered help. Now that they know we're strong, suddenly everyone wants to be our friend." In the Vorthak capital, intelligence analysts worked frantically to understand what had happened. Every theory they developed seemed more impossible than the last. Humans couldn't have developed such advanced technology in isolation. Someone must have helped them. But who? Tae Young Lim presented his findings to Warlord Grixtal. "Sir, I've analyzed wreckage from 17 destroyed ships. The human weapons use principles we don't understand, but the construction materials are definitely of human origin. More troubling, the wear patterns suggest these weapons are at least 20 years old. Impossible, Grixtal growled. If humans had such weapons 20 years ago, why didn't they use them? That's what concerns me most, Taeyong Lim replied. Either they developed everything in secret while pretending to be weak, or they've been deliberately holding back for reasons we don't understand. General Myung-Soo Jun, Earth's Supreme Military Commander, reviewed reports from across human space. Every fleet commander was reporting the same thing. Their restricted weapons worked flawlessly. Decades of secret development and testing had paid off. But now came the hard part, deciding how much more to reveal. He opened a communication channel to his sector commanders. Faces appeared on his screen from across human territory. Men and women who had spent their careers pretending their ships were barely adequate while carrying weapons that could rewrite the laws of reality. Ladies and gentlemen, General Jian said, Phase 1 of the revelation is complete. The galaxy knows we have advanced weapons. Now we move to Phase 2, showing them that what they've seen is just the beginning. Colonel Yu Na Song, commander of humanity's Black Fleet, spoke from her hidden base in the void between stars. Sir, my ships are ready to reveal themselves. When do we show them that our merchant vessels have been military ships all along? Soon, Colonel. Very soon. Ambassador Yu met with the Galactic Council's Security Committee. Representatives from 12 major species sat around a circular table, all trying to hide their nervousness. For years, they had made decisions about galactic security without seriously consulting Earth. Now they realized they might have been planning their defense with incomplete information. Ambassador Yu, said the Altarian delegate, we need to know the full extent of human military capabilities. The Vorthak were a major threat to all of us. If your people could defeat them so easily, why didn't you help end the war sooner? Ambassador Yu had prepared for this question. Honored delegate, Earth never claimed to be unable to defend itself. We simply used appropriate force for the situation. The Vorthak threatened our territory, so we responded with enough power to push them back. Appropriate force? The delegate's voice rose. You destroyed half their fleet in one battle. Yes, Ambassador Yu replied calmly. That was appropriate for the threat they presented. Dr. Woojin Nam, the theoretical physicist behind humanity's most advanced weapons, worked in a laboratory that existed partially outside normal space-time. His research into dimensional manipulation and reality engineering had produced technologies that seemed like magic to other species. But even he knew that humanity's revealed weapons were nothing compared to what waited in the deepest vaults. His latest project involved studying signals from outside the galaxy. The real reason humanity had been preparing for war. Whatever was coming would make the Vorthak look like insects, but the galaxy wasn't ready to hear about that yet. Dr. Nam, his assistant said, Admiral Fleet Marshal Changmin Kim is requesting an update on the deep field sensors. Dr. Nam looked at his readings from the galaxy's edge. The signals were getting stronger every day. Tell the Marshal that our visitors will arrive sooner than expected, maybe 30 years instead of 50. On the Vorthak homeworld, panic began to spread. If humans had been hiding such powerful weapons, what else were they hiding? Military analysts started reviewing decades of intelligence reports looking for clues they had missed. What they found terrified them. Human trade ships were built with military-grade armor. Human colonies had defensive systems that could repel invasion fleets. Human research stations were positioned in perfect locations for monitoring galactic traffic. Everything humans had done for 40 years suddenly looked like preparation for a much larger conflict. Engineer Kang received authorization to begin Phase 2 revelations. He activated manufacturing lines that had been dormant for years. Weapons that made the Kepler station battle look like a minor skirmish began rolling off production lines. Planet crackers that could shatter worlds with a single shot. Fleet killers that could destroy entire armadas from light years away. Sir, his assistant asked, why are we revealing our capabilities now? Why not keep the secret longer? Kang pointed to a display showing the galaxy's outer edge. Faint signals pulsed there, growing stronger each day. Because something much worse than the Vorthak is coming. The galaxy needs to be unified and prepared. We can't do that if everyone still thinks we're weak. Ambassador Yu concluded her meetings at Harmony Point. Every species representative had asked the same questions. How advanced were human weapons? What else were humans hiding? How long had they possessed such technology? Her answers had been diplomatically vague, but the message was clear. Humanity was much more powerful than anyone had imagined. As her ship departed the station, she recorded a message for Earth Command. Phase 2 can begin. The galaxy is ready for the next revelation. They're scared enough to listen, but not so terrified that they'll unite against us. When we show them our real capabilities, they'll want our protection instead of our destruction. General John received the ambassador's message and smiled. For 30 years, humanity had played the role of the struggling underdog. They had let other species patronize them, underestimate them, and ignore their warnings about greater threats. That patience was about to pay off. He activated communication systems that reached every human ship, station, and colony. The message was simple. Phase 2 is authorized. Show them what we've really been building. Across human space, hatches opened on ships to reveal weapons that shouldn't exist. Colonies dropped their disguises to show defensive systems that could protect entire star systems. Research stations revealed themselves as fortress bases capable of projecting power across multiple sectors. The galaxy was about to learn that everything they thought they knew about human capabilities was wrong. And soon, they would discover why humanity had been preparing for a war that hadn't started yet. Director Inhobeck stood in the central command chamber of Earth's planetary defense grid, watching as systems that had been hidden for 50 years finally revealed themselves. Around the solar system, what other species had thought were mining stations and research facilities began transforming into weapons platforms that could destroy entire fleets. "Sir," his deputy reported, "all defensive systems are now online. Jupiter's core manipulators are ready. The asteroid field kinetic projectors are charging. Mars defense complex is showing green across all boards." Director Bayek nodded grimly. "And the outer system weapons?" Neptune Station reports that the gravity well generators are operational. Pluto Base confirms that the dimensional fold cannons are ready for deployment. For decades, the galaxy had seen Earth's solar system as a peaceful backwater with some basic defensive satellites. They had no idea that humans had turned their entire star system into the most heavily fortified location in galactic history. Every planet, every moon, every major asteroid had been weaponized. Colonel Yuna Song received the activation signal aboard her flagship in the depths of space. Around her, 300 vessels that had masqueraded as merchant ships for 20 years began dropping their disguises. Cargo bay doors opened to reveal weapon systems that could crack planets. Engine sections reconfigured to show their true capability, faster than light drives that made normal ships look like they were standing still. "All ships, this is Colonel Song. Operation Cascade is now active. Drop commercial disguise and assume military formation." Across the galaxy, human merchant vessels revealed themselves as the most advanced warships ever built. Trade convoys became battle fleets. Cargo haulers transformed into carriers that could deploy armies in minutes. The galaxy's shipping networks had been humanity's hidden navy all along. Dr. Woojin Nam worked frantically in his laboratory, as sensor readings from the galaxy's edge grew more alarming by the hour. The entities approaching from outside their galaxy were moving faster than predicted. His calculations showed they would arrive in 25 years, not the 50 years originally estimated. "Doctor," his assistant said, "Fleet Admiral Changmin Kim is requesting immediate deployment of the deep field sensors. He says we need to know exactly what we're facing." Dr. Nam authorized the activation of humanity's most classified surveillance network. Sensors that existed partially outside normal spacetime began reaching beyond the galaxy's edge, gathering information about the approaching threat. What they found would terrify every living being in the galaxy. On the Vorthak homeworld, complete panic had set in. Intelligence reports painted an impossible picture. Human colonies weren't just settlements. They were forward military bases with enough firepower to sterilize entire worlds. Human research stations could project defensive shields across multiple star systems. Human exploration ships carried weapons that could destroy anything they encountered. Warlord Grixtal studied the latest reports with growing horror. "You're telling me that every human installation we've observed is actually a military facility?" Tae-Young Lim nodded miserably. "Sir, even their agricultural worlds have defensive systems that could repel our largest invasion fleets. We haven't been fighting their military. We've been fighting their local police forces." The reality was even worse than the Vorthak imagined. Fleet Admiral Changmin Kim commanded humanity's deep space reconnaissance forces, ships that had been exploring the galaxy's edge for 30 years while everyone assumed they were simple survey vessels. These ships carried weapons that could reshape reality itself and crews enhanced with technology that made them nearly superhuman. "Admiral," his operations officer reported, "the outer perimeter sensors have made contact with the approaching entities. Sir, you need to see this data immediately." Admiral Kim reviewed the sensor readings and felt his blood turn cold. The threat from beyond the galaxy was worse than anyone had imagined. Entities that consumed entire star systems, technology that treated the laws of physics as suggestions, a force that had already destroyed 17 galaxies. He opened a priority channel to Earth Command. "Premier, we need to accelerate the revelation timeline. The enemy will be here in 20 years, not 25. The galaxy must be united and prepared immediately." Premier Jin-I Park, Earth's civilian leader, made the hardest decision in human history. For 50 years, humanity had carefully hidden their true capabilities to avoid terrifying other species into a preemptive war. Now they had to reveal everything, and hope the galaxy would choose cooperation over conquest. "Director Bayek," she said, "activate the full disclosure protocol. Show them everything." Across human space, the masks finally came off completely. Planets revealed defensive systems that could manipulate stellar radiation to create artificial suns. Space stations showed their true purpose as mobile fortresses capable of jumping between star systems. Research facilities opened their vaults to display weapons that seemed to break the laws of reality. The galaxy watched in stunned amazement as Earth's moon split open like a flower, revealing it had been hollowed out and converted into the largest weapons platform in known space. Mars showed its true face as a fortress world covered in gun emplacements that could target objects on the other side of the galaxy. Jupiter's Great Red Spot was revealed to be a massive energy collector that powered weapons capable of destroying entire solar systems. Ambassador Haiwan Yu addressed the emergency session of the Galactic Council. Representatives from every major species sat in stunned silence as she explained what they had been seeing. "For 50 years, she said, humanity has been preparing for a threat that most of you cannot imagine. We have built weapons that can destroy planets, fleets that can cross the galaxy in hours, and defenses that can protect entire sectors of space. We have done this not to conquer, but to survive." The Altarian delegate found his voice first. "Survive what? What threat requires such massive preparation?" Ambassador Yu activated a holographic display showing the galaxy's edge. Sensor readings revealed entities approaching from the void between galaxies, things that had destroyed countless civilizations across the universe. "This," she said simply. "They call themselves the Void Swarm. They have consumed 17 galaxies. Ours is next." The council chamber erupted in chaos. Some delegates accused humanity of fabricating the threat to justify their military buildup. Others demanded immediate access to human defensive technology. A few species declared their intention to surrender to the Void Swarm before they arrived. Marshal Kyung-Soo Lee, overall commander of humanity's true military forces, demonstrated the reality of the situation by obliterating an empty star system on the galaxy's edge. Using weapons that existed in dimensions other species couldn't perceive, he caused a sun to collapse into a black hole in seconds, then dispersed the resulting singularity harmlessly into space. That, he announced to the watching galaxy, was a demonstration using our lightest available weaponry. The entities approaching us could have done the same thing with a casual thought. If we fight them separately, every species in this galaxy will be extinct within a year of their arrival. The demonstration had its intended effect. Species that had been considering war against humanity suddenly realized they needed human protection to survive. The Vorthak Empire officially surrendered and requested inclusion in humanity's defense plans. The Crystal Hive offered their entire industrial capacity to support the war effort. Even the proud Stellar Dominion acknowledged human leadership in military matters. Dr. Nam's deep field sensors finally achieved full contact with the approaching entities. What they discovered was worse than anyone had feared. The Void Swarm wasn't just a military force. It was a living galaxy that consumed other galaxies to grow stronger. It had been traveling the universe for millions of years, leaving empty space where entire civilizations once flourished. Premier, Dr. Nam reported, the entities are not just attacking us. They're coming here specifically because they detected our defensive preparations. They view armed galaxies as the greatest threat to their expansion. Premier Park realized the full scope of the situation. Humanity's preparations had drawn the attention of the most dangerous force in the universe. Their attempts to protect the galaxy had marked it for destruction. Then we fight, she declared. We've spent 50 years preparing for this war. Every weapon we've built, every alliance we've hidden, every sacrifice we've made. It all leads to this moment. The galaxy began the largest military mobilization in its history. Human technology flowed to allied species. Vorthak industrial capacity was converted to weapons production. Crystal Hive computational power was dedicated to tactical planning. The Stellar Dominion's ancient warriors began training with human enhancement technology. But even as the greatest alliance in galactic history formed, long-range sensors showed the Void Swarm accelerating toward their galaxy. The final war was coming, and no one knew if even humanity's impossible weapons would be enough to save them all. Premier Ginny Park stood before the assembled representatives of 300 species in the Great Assembly of Harmony Point. The massive chamber, built to accommodate the diverse forms of galactic civilization, had never hosted such a crucial gathering. Every seat was filled. Every screen showed beings from across the galaxy watching history unfold. Citizens of the galaxy, Premier Park began, her voice carried by translation systems to every corner of civilized space. For 50 years, humanity has carried a terrible burden. We have known of a threat so devastating that it required us to deceive you all about our true nature. She activated a holographic display showing the approaching Void Swarm. The entities looked like a living galaxy, twisted into shapes that hurt to perceive, stars that burned with wrong colors, planets that moved in patterns that defied physics, ships the size of solar systems that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Void Swarm has destroyed 17 galaxies. They consume entire civilizations to fuel their expansion across the universe. Our long-range sensors detected them 60 years ago, moving toward our galaxy. Everything we have done since then, every weapon we built, every deception we maintained, every alliance we cultivated in secret, has been preparation for the war that is coming. Marshal Kyung-Soo Lee took control of the presentation, showing tactical displays that made the assembled delegates gasp in fear and amazement. Human weapons that could manipulate the fundamental forces of reality. Defenses that existed across multiple dimensions. Ships that moved through time itself to attack. Enemies before they were born. The weapons you saw us use against the Vorthak, Marshal Lee explained, represented approximately 3% of our actual military capacity. We have been building for a war against entities that view the laws of physics as mild suggestions. Everything we revealed during the Cascade Protocol was designed to prepare you for this moment. In the audience, Warlord Grixtal sat next to beings he had considered enemies just months before. The revelation of the Void Swarm had instantly made all previous conflicts seem petty. Species that had fought each other for centuries now worked together, knowing that survival required absolute cooperation. Marshal Lee, the Vorthak leader, said, "What do you need from us?" "Everything," Marshal Lee replied simply. "Every ship, every world, every resource you can spare. The Void Swarm will arrive in 18 years. We have that long to transform, this galaxy from a collection of competing civilizations into a unified defense force. Dr. Wu Jin Nam presented the technical specifications that would govern the galactic defense effort. Human dimensional technology would be shared with all allied species. Vorthak industrial capacity would be expanded using human manufacturing techniques. Crystal Hive computational networks would be integrated with human artificial intelligence systems. The enemy we face, Dr. Nam explained, operates on principles that transcend normal space-time. They can attack us from dimensions we cannot perceive, using weapons that rewrite reality around their targets. Our only hope is to meet them with technology that operates on the same level. The Stellar Dominion's ancient Emperor Zalthus spoke from his crystalline throne. His species had ruled a third of the galaxy for 10,000 years, but even their pride bent before the magnitude of the threat. Humanity, he said in a voice like grinding stone, we offer our eternal fleet and all our war knowledge. Command us as you see fit. One by one, every major species pledged their complete resources to the defense effort. The Altarian Republic offered their industrial worlds. The Nexus Coalition provided their trade networks for military logistics. The Zephyrian Collective contributed their biotechnology for enhanced soldiers. Colonel Yuna Song, now promoted to Admiral of the Combined Defense Fleet, coordinated the largest military buildup in galactic history. Human Black Fleet vessels revealed themselves across the galaxy, each one becoming the core of a new battle group that included ships from dozens of species. The enemy's advanced scouts will arrive in 12 years, she reported to the Defense Council. We need to be ready to face them in the void between galaxies, far from any populated worlds. Fleet Admiral Chang Min Kim's Deep Space Reconnaissance Forces made contact with the first Void Swarm entities at the galaxy's edge. The encounter lasted 17 seconds before his most advanced warship was forced to retreat. The entity they faced was the size of a moon and seemed to exist in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Premier, Admiral Kim reported, we've confirmed that conventional tactics will not work against these entities. They don't just ignore our weapons. They absorb the energy and become stronger. We'll need to use the most classified systems from the deep vaults. Premier Park authorized the release of humanity's ultimate weapons. Technologies that had been deemed too dangerous to test were activated. Reality manipulation systems that could rewrite the laws of physics in localized space. Temporal weapons that could erase enemies from the timeline. Dimensional bombs that could destroy entire sectors of spacetime. The galaxy watched in awe as human engineers began constructing the great fortifications, defensive structures that spanned entire star systems, artificial planets that existed partially outside normal space, energy barriers that could block attacks from other dimensions, gravity wells that could trap entities the size of solar systems. Ambassador Hai Wan Yu coordinated the cultural integration effort, helping species that had been enemies for millennia learn to work together. The task seemed impossible until the first joint crews began operating human-designed vessels. Something about fighting for universal survival brought out the best in every species. The old boundaries don't matter anymore, she explained to a group of mixed species officers. Vorthak, human, Altarian, crystal, we're all the same thing now. We're the galaxy's immune system, and we're all that stands between life and the void. Dr. Ji-Hai Kim emerged from her underground laboratories to oversee the final preparations. The weapons she had kept locked away for 50 years were finally being deployed. Planet killers that could destroy worlds from light years away. Starbreakers that could cause suns to go supernova on command. Fleet enders that could eliminate entire armadas with a single shot. These weapons were designed to fight gods, she told the assembled military leaders. The entities we face are close enough to that description. Use them wisely, because once this war begins, there will be no holding back. The Void Herald, the first major entity from the swarm to enter their galaxy, appeared at the edge of known space. It was larger than most planets and radiated wrongness that made reality bend around it. Its arrival caused 3 nearby stars to age rapidly and die, their energy absorbed by the creature's impossible biology. Marshal Lee ordered the deployment of humanity's first strike fleet, 100 vessels carrying the most advanced weapons ever built. The battle lasted 6 hours and resulted in the destruction of 97 human ships. But the Void Herald was destroyed, proving that the entities could be killed. "We can hurt them," Marshal Lee announced to the galaxy. "It costs us dearly, but they can be destroyed. We have a chance." The galactic population began the greatest migration in history as civilians moved to the most heavily defended core worlds. Industrial planets worked around the clock to produce weapons and ships. Training academies turned out soldiers enhanced with human biotechnology. Every species contributed their unique abilities to the war effort. Premier Park made her final address to the galaxy as the Void Swarm's main force approached their border. Behind her, the Great Assembly Hall showed representatives from 300 species standing together, no longer divided by old grudges or territorial disputes. "Citizens of the galaxy," she said, "the enemy is here. In 72 hours, the largest battle in the history of life itself will begin at the edge of our galaxy. We go to war not as separate species, but as one people defending our home against the darkness between the stars." The assembled delegates rose as one. Beings of every shape and size united by their determination to survive. The Vorthak roared their war cries. The Altarians sang their ancient battle hymns. The crystal hive pulsed with harmonized light. Humans stood silently, their faces showing the grim satisfaction of a plan 50 years in the making finally coming to fruition. As the Void Swarm crossed into their galaxy, reality itself began to change around them. Space twisted into impossible shapes. Time flowed backward in some regions. The fundamental forces that held the universe together started breaking down under the influence of entities that existed outside normal creation. But the galaxy was ready. Every world bristled with weapons that shouldn't exist. Every ship carried crews from multiple species working together with perfect coordination. Every sector was defended by technologies that treated the laws of physics as starting suggestions rather than absolute rules. The war for the galaxy's survival was about to begin, and for the first time in 60 years, humanity wouldn't have to fight alone. They had spent 5 decades preparing for this moment, turning every species in the galaxy from potential enemies into essential allies. The Void Swarm had consumed 17 galaxies, but they had never faced a galaxy that was ready for them. They had never encountered a species like humanity, beings who could plan for 50 years, sacrifice ever,